The cold mist clung to Lieutenant Commander Emily Carter's uniform as she stepped onto the sprawling training grounds. The early morning sun struggled through the fog, painting the concrete obstacles and rugged terrain with a ghostly light. She tightened the straps on her pack, the weight familiar but deceptively light compared to what awaited her. Around her, the elite Navy SEAL candidates jogged past, their movements precise, fluid, almost effortless. Their eyes flicked toward her, some curious, most skeptical. A woman at this level of the trials was rare but not impossible. Emily's heart pounded, not from fear but anticipation. Years of preparation had led to this moment. Years of pre-dawn runs, hours in the weight room, relentless swimming and combat simulations had forged a body capable of feats most deemed impossible. But the Navy SEAL evaluation was about more than raw strength. It was a crucible designed to test the mind, endurance, and spirit of only the toughest warriors. And she had come to prove she belonged. The instructors watched silently from the sidelines, clipboard in hand, expressions unreadable. Their reputation preceded them, men who had endured the most extreme missions, leaders of teams who had faced impossible odds in hostile territory. Their approval was earned, not given. Emily's gaze swept the field, walls of varying heights, ropes dangling from steel beams, and the infamous mud pit, a notorious equalizer that humbled even the strongest candidates. Every element was a calculated test of grit and determination. A distant whistle cut through the morning air, sharp and commanding. The trials were about to begin. Emily's pulse quickened. She felt the familiar surge of adrenaline, sharp, electric, sharpening every sense. She had studied the course, memorized the drills, and visualized each obstacle. But no amount of preparation could replicate the experience of facing it live, under the eyes of those who expected failure. She squared her shoulders and stepped forward, feeling the weight of expectation pressing from all sides. The first obstacle loomed ahead, a 20-foot wall slick with morning dew. Several SEAL candidates approached it with practiced leaps and hooks of their feet, swinging their bodies upward effortlessly. Emily assessed it quickly. Timing and leverage would be key. With a deep breath, she sprinted toward the wall, planting her feet against the surface, hands gripping the cold steel at the top. Her muscles strained, her palms scraped against rough metal, but she pushed upward. A grunt escaped her lips as she hoisted herself over, landing with a heavy thud on the other side. Heads turned. A few SEALs whispered, "She did it." Mud caked her boots as she scrambled toward the next challenge. A horizontal rope bridge stretched taut over a shallow trench. The wind tugged at it, threatening to throw off balance. Emily gripped the rope, feeling her arms protest as she swung forward. Her mind worked as hard as her body, calculating each handhold, each step. Below, the pit of mud was waiting for those who faltered. Halfway across, a strong gust rocked the bridge. Emily's heart leapt, muscles tensing. One misstep and she'd be down. She adjusted her stance, tightened her grip, and moved with deliberate, calculated strength. By the time she reached the far end, sweat dripped into her eyes, her uniform soaked, hair plastered to her forehead. The instructors scribbled notes, exchanging silent observations. Emily barely noticed. She felt a fire building within her, the thrill of meeting challenge head-on, proving that preparation and determination could overcome even the most intimidating physical test. Every grunt, every scrape of metal against her skin was a reminder. She was here to succeed, and she wouldn't fail. The field shifted as more obstacles appeared, cargo nets, heavy beams, and a sequence of uneven platforms that required balance, agility, and raw power. Emily moved quickly, methodically, treating each obstacle as both puzzle and opponent. A SEAL candidate nearby tried to speed past her, sneering slightly. Emily ignored him. This was never a race against others. It was a race against herself, against expectations, against every doubt she'd ever faced. Every successful maneuver reinforced her confidence, every misstep a lesson quickly corrected. Then came the water test, frigid and merciless. A shallow pool with hidden currents and submerged obstacles awaited the candidates. Emily's breath hitched at the cold as she plunged in. The shock of icy water stole her breath for a moment, but she pushed forward, legs pumping, arms slicing through the resistance. Underwater, she maneuvered with the precision of a trained diver, avoiding hidden snares and keeping momentum despite the brutal temperature. Emerging on the other side, she gasped, shivering but exhilarated. The mental and physical strain was already stacking, but she welcomed it. The instructors began to call out times, noting efficiency, control, and composure under pressure. Emily wiped the water from her eyes and readied herself for the final portion of the first phase, a series of weighted carries across uneven terrain. Crates, logs, and weighted bags tested both her strength and her endurance. Her muscles screamed in protest, but she forced them to comply, leveraging technique over brute force. Step by step, she advanced. With every movement, the skepticism of those around her began to waver, replaced by quiet acknowledgement. She was proving herself not with words, but with action. By the end of the first day, Emily stood at the edge of the field, drenched, exhausted, and exhilarated. Her uniform clung to her body, mud and sweat marking every triumph and struggle. Around her, other candidates rested, some nodding in respect, others silently begrudging her success. The instructors made their notes, expressions unreadable, but Emily caught brief glances of approval. She had survived the opening trials, but she knew the real tests were yet to come. Heavier gear, longer endurance challenges, and the mental games designed to push even the strongest candidates beyond breaking. As she walked toward the temporary barracks, muscles aching, lungs still burning from exertion, Emily allowed herself a quiet moment of satisfaction. The day had been brutal, the challenges nearly impossible, and yet she had met them head-on. This was only the beginning. The Navy SEAL trials would test every fiber of her being, but Emily Carter had shown, even on the first day, that she was a force to be reckoned with. The sun had barely risen when Emily Carter stepped onto the training field again, muscles still sore from the previous day's trials. Mist hung low over the rugged terrain, and the air smelled of damp earth and sweat. The obstacle course awaited, even more punishing than before, stretching like a gauntlet designed to crush the unprepared. SEAL instructors loomed at intervals, watching every movement with clinical scrutiny. Around her, the other candidates stretched and flexed, their expressions a mixture of anticipation and intimidation. Emily ignored them. Her focus was singular: push forward, survive, and prove herself. The first section demanded long-distance endurance. Candidates had to run over uneven ground, leap across ditches, and climb embankments while carrying weighted packs. Emily's lungs burned immediately, each breath sharp and ragged. Her legs ached from the previous day, but she forced them to obey, one step at a time. Around her, some candidates surged ahead effortlessly, their strides powerful and confident. Emily refused to be discouraged. She had always known that stamina was not simply about speed. It was about efficiency, packing, and the ability to keep moving when every fiber of your body demanded rest. By the halfway mark, Emily had fallen behind slightly, a target of some whispered comments. "She's slowing down," one muttered. "Doesn't look like she'll last." She ignored them, digging into her mental reserves. Each hill she climbed, each muddy slope she descended reminded her of past training, of every day she had spent preparing for this moment. Her arms were coated in mud from gripping rocks and ropes, her uniform smeared with sweat and grime, but she continued. She had learned long ago that endurance was as much mental as physical. The body often followed where the mind led. Next came the water crossing, deceptively calm at first glance but hiding currents designed to throw candidates off balance. Emily approached, assessing the depth and speed. She plunged in, water shock freezing her momentarily. Muscles tensed against the icy current, but she forced herself to move with deliberate strokes. SEAL instructors shouted instructions and warnings, watching for hesitation or weakness. Other candidates struggled, some sinking or grabbing the submerged obstacles in panic. Emily focused on breathing and technique, letting her body glide and her mind calculate. Step by step, she advanced, emerging from the water exhausted but unbroken. a new challenge appeared, a wall climb requiring sheer upper body strength combined with precision footwork. Emily's shoulders ached from the previous exertion, but determination fueled her grip. She scaled the wall, feeling every scrape of her palms against the rough surface. Her legs shook as she pushed upward, sweat dripping into her eyes, but she refused to pause. At the top, she grabbed the rope, swinging herself over with controlled momentum. Landing hard on the ground, she felt a surge of adrenaline, proof that persistence and calculated effort could overcome raw strength alone. The course became increasingly punishing. Weighted carries over uneven terrain tested every muscle. Emily hoisted crates and sandbags, feeling the strain in her back, shoulders, and arms. Each step threatened to throw her off balance. Each movement demanded precision. Around her, candidates faltered, some collapsing under the weight, others losing focus. Emily adjusted her grip, shifted the load, and pressed on. Her technique was methodical, each motion deliberate, her body moving as a unit rather than struggling against the weight. She discovered that sometimes strategy mattered more than raw power. By mid-morning, fatigue began to set in. Her muscles trembled, her joints ached, and sweat ran in rivers down her face. Yet the instructor's eyes were everywhere, noting every mistake, every sign of weakness or strength. Emily's breathing was ragged, her mind battling the exhaustion threatening to overtake her. She thought of every challenge she had ever faced: long runs in stormy conditions, endless swimming drills, grueling combat simulations. Each memory fueled her, each success gave her the courage to push forward. The obstacles were brutal, but giving up had never been an option. Then came the mud pit, thick, sucking mud that threatened to consume boots and legs alike. Candidates approached it cautiously, some leaping in and floundering, others attempting to bypass sections and losing balance. Emily assessed the pit, calculating each step. She plunged in, muscles straining against the resistance. Each movement was laborious. Each pull required deliberate energy. Mud clung to her uniform, weighing her down, but she advanced with determination. Every step through the pit was a testament to her grit. Physical strength alone would not suffice here. Only perseverance and focus could see her through. As the final stretch approached, Emily faced a combination of ropes, walls, and uneven platforms designed to test agility under extreme fatigue. She could feel her body nearing its limits, every muscle screaming for rest. But she refused to yield. Hands bruised, back aching, legs trembling, she moved with precision, focusing on balance and momentum. The instructors noted her technique, impressed with her ability to maintain control despite exhaustion. One whispered to another, "She's not just surviving, she's mastering this." Emily didn't hear it, she didn't need to. Her mind was focused entirely on finishing. Finally, she crossed the last obstacle and collapsed briefly, breathing hard, heart racing. Around her, the SEAL candidates completed their runs, some faster, some slower. She didn't compare herself. She measured only her own progress. Instructors took notes, their expressions neutral but their eyes hinting at respect. Emily wiped mud from her face, feeling the sting of fatigue in every fiber of her body. She had completed the first phase of the trial. She was sore, exhausted, and tested to her limits, but she had proven one undeniable fact: she could endure what most believed impossible. As she stepped away from the course, Emily's mind already anticipated what lay ahead: heavier equipment, longer trials, and mental tests designed to break even the strongest candidates. Today had been a brutal initiation, but it was only the beginning. She had survived the first obstacles, gained the respect of those watching, and most importantly, affirmed to herself that strength wasn't just measured in muscle. It was measured in heart, determination, and the refusal to quit. The sun had barely risen when Emily Carter awoke to the echoing whistle of the instructors. Fatigue weighed on her like a second uniform, muscles stiff, mind foggy, eyes heavy. Yesterday's grueling trials had pushed her body to the brink. Today, the challenge would press deeper into the realm of the mind. The SEAL evaluation was not only a test of strength, endurance, or skill, it was a test of psychological resilience. Emily had anticipated physical strain, but the mental trials were designed to break even the most disciplined candidates. The first task was deceptively simple: navigate a labyrinth under strict time constraints, blindfolded for half the course. The instructors' voices boomed in sudden, sharp commands, sometimes contradicting each other, testing not only her focus but her ability to process information under pressure. Candidates whispered nervously to one another, panic flickering in eyes clouded with fatigue. Emily tightened her jaw, forcing herself to block out the distractions. Each step became deliberate, measured. She counted handholds, memorized sounds, and visualized the path ahead. Panic would be the enemy, calculation the ally. As she progressed, the obstacles became more insidious. Ropes swung unpredictably, platforms wobbled, and the instructors introduced sudden shifts in the rules. Some candidates froze, misinterpreted instructions, or faltered entirely. Emily remained calm, treating each change as a puzzle rather than a punishment. Her mind worked methodically, breaking down problems into manageable steps. She thought of every mission she had ever completed, every scenario that demanded clarity under stress. With each successfully navigated section, she felt the faint, growing pulse of confidence. Mental endurance could be trained as rigorously as physical strength, and she had trained for this. Next came sleep deprivation exercises. Candidates were placed in a simulated combat environment, required to maintain vigilance through extended periods of disrupted rest. Alarms blared unexpectedly, lights flashed in irregular intervals, and tasks appeared without warning. Emily's eyelids burned, her thoughts slowed, but she refused to yield. She employed visualization, mentally rehearsing the drills and mapping the environment in her mind. While others succumbed to fatigue, stumbling, or making errors, she moved with steady precision, conserving energy and focusing on critical objectives. Each minor success reinforced her resolve. The instructors, observing quietly, began increasing the psychological intensity. They shouted contradictory commands, set traps in the maze, and intentionally introduced confusion. Some candidates snapped under the pressure, abandoning their strategy or panicking at minor setbacks. Emily, however, leaned into the chaos. She treated it as an extension of battlefield unpredictability, a test of her ability to remain calm and adapt. Memories of past missions flashed through her mind: the night operations, the sudden ambushes, the need to make decisions when everything else threatened to collapse. Her calm under pressure was honed, instinctive, and unyielding. At one point, a sudden water simulation threw her into a freezing tank with submerged obstacles. Disoriented, she struggled against the cold, waves splashing against her and the constant shifting of instructions from the instructors. Her mind screamed for rational panic, her body instinctively reacted. But Emily paused, breathing deeply, assessing the environment, plotting her movements carefully. Step by step, she navigated the tank, her training guiding her through the shock of cold and confusion. Emerging from the water, she gasped for air, muscles trembling, not from exhaustion alone, but from the controlled confrontation with fear itself. Then came the ultimate challenge of mental endurance, a high-stress tactical simulation with incomplete information. Candidates were required to identify threats, navigate an unpredictable environment, and make critical decisions under extreme fatigue. Emily felt her body waver, exhaustion pressing from all directions. The other candidates floundered, overwhelmed by conflicting stimuli and stress. But Emily's mind sharpened. She compartmentalized, analyzing each signal, anticipating the instructor's intentions, and predicting outcomes. She made decisions quickly, decisively, without hesitation. Each correct move bolstered her confidence, while each misstep became a lesson, quickly corrected in real time. By midday, the mental and physical strain began to compound. Emily's eyelids drooped, her muscles protested, and her lungs burned from shallow, uneven breathing. Yet she pressed forward. Every sound, every visual cue was cataloged and processed with precision. The instructors whispered among themselves, taking note of her calm under pressure, her unwavering focus. Even the most seasoned SEAL candidates had struggled with these trials, yet Emily moved through them with clarity, determination, and calculated adaptability. Respect began to replace doubt in their eyes, though none voiced it openly. The final segment of the mental trials involved unexpected stress inserts, scenarios designed to provoke fear, doubt, and emotional strain. Instructors shouted contradictory orders, simulated casualties, and created artificial crises. Some candidates froze or panicked, losing time and momentum. Emily, however, harnessed the tension, focusing on what mattered: problem-solving, composure, and controlled action. She realized that these trials mirrored real combat scenarios, where physical strength alone could not save the day. Mental acuity, emotional control, and strategic thinking were equally crucial. She had trained for this. She was ready. As the day drew to a close, Emily stood on the edge of the training field, sweat mixing with mud and grime. She was exhausted, drained to her core, but exhilarated. The mind games had tested her resolve, stretched her endurance, and revealed the power of focus under extreme pressure. She had faced doubt, fatigue, and psychological strain, and had prevailed. Around her, instructors made notes, observing candidates with quiet intensity. Emily's performance had begun to shift perceptions. She was no longer just a participant. She was a contender, capable of handling the impossible. Her mind lingered on the trials to come, the ultimate challenge of SEAL-level gear and the grueling tests of physical and mental synergy. But for now, she allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. She had endured, adapted, and excelled. The mind games had been conquered, a critical step toward proving that she could not only meet the standards but exceed them. Emily Carter had survived another day in the crucible, and the real test of strength was only beginning. The sun beat down mercilessly on the training ground as Emily Carter approached the next phase of the trials. A long line of crates, diving tanks, ammo boxes, and heavy SEAL gear stretched before her, each piece a testament to the grueling standards of elite operators. These were tools designed for warriors trained to operate in combat zones, not typical officers, and certainly not a single woman in a field of hardened SEAL candidates. The weight was daunting, the shapes awkward. Yet Emily approached the challenge with the same calm determination that had carried her through the first 2 days. The first crate required her to lift over her head, hold it steady, and maneuver it across uneven terrain. She hesitated briefly, feeling the strain in her arms and shoulders. Other candidates rushed past, muttering under their breath about her likely failure. Emily ignored them. She centered herself, bracing her core, and focused on technique rather than brute strength. With a deep breath, she hoisted the crate, muscles screaming in protest, and began the careful trek forward. Step by step she moved, her focus absolute. The terrain was treacherous. Muddy slopes, scattered debris, and unstable planks demanded constant adjustment. One misstep could send the crate tumbling, wasting effort and attracting harsh scrutiny from instructors. Emily's mind calculated each step, each pivot, and each shift of weight. She discovered quickly that leverage was as important as raw power. Adjusting her grip, shifting the crate slightly, she found a rhythm that allowed her to maintain control while conserving energy. Sweat ran down her face, but her movements remained precise, disciplined. Next came a series of heavier loads: diving tanks, ammunition boxes, and weighted bags designed to simulate full combat conditions. Each item was heavier than anything Emily had previously carried, awkward in shape and balance. Her arms trembled, back muscles ached, but she pushed through, focusing on one lift at a time. Some candidates faltered here, dropping crates or staggering under the weight. Emily adapted quickly, rotating her shoulders, tightening her grip, and stepping carefully. The instructors watched silently, nodding her technique, her resilience, and her unwavering focus. Midway through the course, a critical obstacle required Emily to maneuver a crate over a high wall, simulating the extraction of gear under fire. She paused at the base, muscles screaming, doubt whispering that she could not possibly succeed. But she had faced doubt before and had conquered it. Channeling every ounce of strength and focus, she lifted the crate, braced her feet against the wall, and leveraged her body weight to swing it over. A grunt escaped her, but she completed the motion. For a fleeting moment, silence fell over the field, then murmurs of disbelief spread among the other candidates. The final stretch was the most punishing, carrying two heavy packs simultaneously while navigating a narrow, uneven bridge over a shallow trench. Balance was crucial, precision essential. Emily felt her hands blistering against the straps, muscles trembling uncontrollably. She could hear her pulse in her ears, the weight pressing against her chest. Yet she moved deliberately, one careful step at a time, keeping her mind focused, ignoring the exhaustion threatening to overwhelm her. The other candidates watched, some incredulous, some silently admiring her determination. As she reached the halfway point, a gust of wind threatened to unbalance her. The packs shifted dangerously, dragging her toward the edge. Emily adjusted immediately, planting her feet, leaning into the weight and continuing forward with controlled motion. The instructors' voices shouted corrections and encouragement, a blur of commands and pressure. Every movement demanded complete coordination between mind and body. The physical strain was immense, but Emily's mental clarity allowed her to maintain control where others might have faltered. By the time she approached the final lift, a massive ammo crate weighing more than many of her own body weight, Emily's muscles screamed in protest. Sweat poured down her back, mixing with dirt and mud. Her forearms shook as she gripped the crate, but she refused to yield. Using leverage, timing, and controlled bursts of strength, she hoisted the crate, moving it toward the final platform. The instructors paused, silently observing as she completed the maneuver with precision. Emily's chest heaved, exhaustion overwhelming every fiber of her being, but she had done it. When the last crate hit the ground, Emily collapsed to one knee, muscles trembling, lungs gasping for air. Around her, the field seemed to hold its breath. Candidates who had doubted her or whispered insults now stared in awe, realizing that she had achieved what few could manage. Instructors exchanged glances, silently acknowledging her performance. Emily had not only lifted the SEAL-level gear, she had done so with poise, precision, and determination that transcended expectations. In that moment, Emily realized the truth of the trials. Strength was more than muscle, more than endurance. It was focus, strategy, and the refusal to surrender to doubt. The gear was heavy, the course punishing, and the observers exacting, but she had prevailed. For a brief moment, pride mingled with fatigue, but there was no time to linger. The trials continued, and tomorrow would bring new challenges, each designed to push her further. Yet Emily stood taller, knowing she had proven something fundamental. She was capable of feats even seasoned warriors approached with caution. As she walked off the field, muscles aching and vision blurred from sweat, Emily Carter understood that today had marked a turning point. The physical tests had been conquered, the mind had remained sharp, and the impossible had been achieved. Around her, the murmurs of admiration grew louder, the glances from instructors tinged with respect rather than doubt. Emily had lifted not only gear, but expectations, prejudices, and the weight of history itself, and she was far from finished. Emily Carter's body screamed in protest. Every muscle ached, every joint burned, yet she forced herself to continue. The SEAL-level gear had pushed her past limits she hadn't thought possible. Her arms trembled as she hoisted another crate, her legs wobbled under the relentless strain. Sweat poured down her face, mixing with the mud and grime from the obstacles, stinging her eyes. Breathing was shallow, ragged, yet every fiber of her being refused to surrender. Fatigue and doubt were constant companions, but she would not allow them to dictate the outcome. The instructors had upped the intensity. Now she faced sequences of lifts, carries, and maneuvering exercises, each heavier than the last, designed to test strength under extreme stress. The sun blazed overhead, scorching her back, and each step through uneven terrain felt as though it would send her crashing to the ground. Emily's mind wavered momentarily, doubts whispering, "You can't do this. Stop." But she swallowed the voice, focusing instead on one lift at a time, one careful step at a time. The battlefield had taught her discipline, and discipline overrode fatigue. At one point, she dropped the crate she had been carrying, the impact echoing loudly. Pain shot through her forearms, a reminder of the strain, and for a fleeting moment she considered surrender. Around her, other candidates watched, some struggling themselves, others simply observing. Emily pressed her palms to the ground, dug deep, and lifted herself back to the task. She gritted her teeth, feeling the burn radiate through her body, and slowly hoisted the crate again. Each movement was agony, but progress was still progress. She refused to quit. The instructors circled, silently observing her every motion. One of them leaned closer to another and muttered something under his breath. Emily didn't hear it, but she could sense their scrutiny. This was the crucible, the moment when they tested not only strength, but the essence of character. Fatigue would break some candidates, fear would immobilize others, but Emily's mind remained steady. She focused on technique, on leverage, on the smallest adjustments that would allow her body to move efficiently, even under impossible loads. The mental pressure matched the physical strain. Emily felt the weight of expectations pressing down on her, expectations from the instructors, from her peers, and most importantly, from herself. She thought of every early morning run, every grueling training session, every moment she had ever pushed herself beyond what seemed possible. She remembered the faces of fallen comrades, mentors who had taught her to persist, the silent voice in her head that refused to accept impossible. Each memory became fuel, propelling her forward when her body screamed to stop. Fatigue and pain were relentless. Her arms shook violently as she lifted the next heavy crate. Her legs wobbled with each step, threatening to collapse under the weight. Sweat drenched her uniform, her vision blurred, and yet she pressed on. One misstep would cost her precious seconds. One lapse in focus could ruin the sequence. Emily tightened her grip, drew a deep breath, and moved deliberately, step by step, refusing to let exhaustion dictate her performance. She discovered something essential. Strength was not just physical. It was perseverance, mental clarity, and the refusal to yield when all signals screamed surrender. Midway through the sequence, Emily's body began to reach true breaking points. Her muscles burned, her back screamed, and fatigue wrapped around her mind like a vice. She stumbled, nearly losing control of a particularly heavy crate. Panic threatened to set in, but she forced herself to pause, recalibrate, and take control. One deep breath, one slow motion at a time, she lifted, repositioned, and moved forward. Her mind had become sharper than ever, each calculated step compensating for the failing energy in her limbs. The instructors nodded quietly, some watched in silent awe. At another station, she faced a simulated tactical maneuver while carrying two weighted packs. Balance teetered on the edge of impossibility. Her hands blistered, fingers raw from gripping straps and ropes. Her vision tunneled slightly from exhaustion, yet she maintained focus, shifting weight, controlling momentum, and adjusting her footing. Each careful movement was critical. A slight miscalculation could have sent her crashing into the obstacle or dropping the gear. Pain, exhaustion, and the fear of failure collided, but Emily refused to succumb. She persisted. By late afternoon, she was nearing the culmination of the sequence. A series of heavy lifts over high walls awaited her, the final test of endurance and raw strength. Her muscles quivered violently, her lungs burned, and her mind weighed the immense difficulty ahead. The crate before her felt impossibly heavy. She could feel the strain in every fiber of her being. Yet deep within, a quiet voice reminded her of every accomplishment that had led her here. She was capable. She was trained. She was ready. With a roar that was half pain and half determination, Emily heaved the crate upward, swinging her body and leveraging every ounce of energy she had left. Her arms trembled violently, sweat poured down her face, and the crate seemed to resist every motion. But step by step, lift by lift, she moved it over the wall, placing it precisely where it belonged. Around her, the field fell silent, the weight of her achievement hanging in the air. Emily sank to one knee, breathing ragged, muscles quivering but victorious. She had endured. She had survived. She had conquered. For the first time, the instructors exchanged words of acknowledgement, subtle nods replacing the previous skepticism. Emily Carter had not only lifted gear meant for seasoned SEALs, she had done it with precision, composure, and unwavering determination. She had pushed herself beyond the threshold of physical and mental endurance and emerged triumphant. Around her, candidates looked on in quiet awe, understanding that they had witnessed something extraordinary. Emily had proven a truth that transcended physical strength. True power lay in perseverance, focus, and the refusal to quit. As she rose slowly to her feet, muscles screaming in protest, Emily allowed herself a brief moment to reflect. The breaking points she had faced were real, painful, and exhausting, but she had persevered. She had endured not just the physical strain, but the mental pressure and emotional weight that accompanied such trials. And in doing so, she had transformed doubt into respect, skepticism into admiration, and impossible challenges into accomplished feats. Emily Carter had not just survived this day, she had become unstoppable. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the training field as Emily Carter faced the final obstacle. Before her lay the heaviest gear, massive ammo crates, waterlogged diving tanks, and assault packs loaded to simulate full combat conditions. The sequence would test every ounce of her strength, endurance, and mental focus. Fatigue pressed on her from every direction, muscles trembling violently, sweat dripping into her eyes. Yet despite the exhaustion, Emily felt a surge of determination she had never experienced before. This was the moment she had trained for, the culmination of everything she had endured. The first crate, enormous and awkward, weighed more than many candidates could lift. Emily positioned herself carefully, feet planted, core braced, grip firm. For a fleeting second, doubt threatened to creep in, but she pushed it aside. Channeling every lesson learned over years of preparation, she hoisted the crate, feeling the strain ripple through her arms and back. Step by step, she maneuvered it across the uneven terrain, muscles burning, lungs heaving. Every motion demanded concentration. One miscalculation could undo the hours of grueling work she had endured. Around her, other candidates watched, some frozen in awe, others attempting to conceal disbelief. The instructors observed silently, pens moving rapidly across clipboards, their faces betraying nothing. Yet Emily could sense the shift in their perception. They had doubted her at the start, questioning her ability to endure and succeed. Now, each precise movement she made challenged every expectation. Emily's determination was palpable, almost electric, and it radiated across the field. She was no longer a contender, she was a force. Next came the diving tanks, wet, heavy, and awkwardly balanced. Emily approached them carefully, bending at the knees, stabilizing her posture and gripping the cold metal firmly. Her arms trembled violently as she lifted, but she pressed forward step by step, adjusting her footing across slippery terrain. Sweat ran down her back, her muscles screamed in protest, yet she refused to yield. Every step was a test of endurance and control, and Emily had mastered both. The tanks were heavy, but not heavier than her will. As the sequence continued, Emily faced multiple lifts in rapid succession, moving from one cumbersome object to the next. Each crate or pack seemed heavier than the last, designed to push the candidates beyond their breaking points. Emily's breathing grew ragged, her vision blurred slightly from exhaustion, but her mind remained razor-sharp. She calculated weight shifts, adjusted leverage, and moved with deliberate precision. The agony in her muscles was constant, but she converted it into controlled power. Pain was no longer an enemy, it was a tool she had learned to wield. A particularly brutal section required her to hoist 2 crates simultaneously over a waist-high wall, then position them on uneven platforms. Emily paused, muscles trembling, aware of the difficulty ahead. She inhaled deeply, centering herself, and executed the lift with precision. Her arms quivered, sweat pouring into her eyes, but the crates rose steadily. She shifted her body weight carefully, using balance and leverage rather than sheer brute force. Each crate landed perfectly, the echo of impact ringing across the field. A subtle murmur ran through the observing candidates. Emily could feel the weight of their admiration and astonishment. The final challenge awaited, a single, massive crate that combined all previous lessons in strength, strategy, and endurance. Emily approached it with reverence, placing her hands on the cold, unyielding surface. Her muscles shook uncontrollably, her chest heaving, but her mind was clear and unwavering. She visualized the lift, recalling every technique she had mastered over years of training. With a guttural effort, she hoisted the crate, feeling the strain ripple through her entire body. Her legs trembled under the weight, but she adjusted her stance, shifting the load with calculated precision. Step by grueling step, Emily moved the crate toward its final destination. Her grip was firm, her focus absolute, and her breathing synchronized with each movement. Around her, the field seemed to fall silent, the usual chatter of candidates replaced by awestruck observation. She had become a study in resilience, determination, and skill, the perfect blend of physical strength and mental clarity. Every lift, every step, every adjustment was a testament to her years of preparation and unyielding spirit. Finally, she positioned the crate precisely on the final platform. Emily collapsed to her knees, trembling, drenched in sweat and mud, yet a triumphant smile broke across her face. She had done it. She had lifted, carried, and maneuvered gear that many seasoned SEALs struggled to manage. The instructors, who had observed quietly until now, exchanged nods of acknowledgement. Respect replaced doubt. Whispers of admiration spread among the other candidates, who realized that they had witnessed an extraordinary feat. Emily's triumph was not just physical, it was symbolic. She had overcome skepticism, bias, exhaustion, and the limits of her own body. She had proven that strength was more than raw muscle. It was perseverance, strategy, and the refusal to quit when faced with seemingly impossible challenges. As she rose to her feet, shaking but victorious, she felt a surge of pride unlike any she had known. Today, she had earned not only personal triumph, but the quiet acknowledgement of the elite instructors who had doubted her at the start. The day ended with Emily standing tall amid the remnants of the grueling trials, her uniform caked with mud, sweat, and grime. Around her, instructors made their notes, exchanging quiet observations about technique, efficiency, and composure under pressure. Candidates who had once doubted her abilities now regarded her with awe and newfound respect. Emily, however, allowed herself only a brief moment of reflection before preparing mentally for the next phases. She knew that challenges still lay ahead, but the triumph of this day would remain a cornerstone of her journey. For the first time, Emily Carter truly felt the power of her perseverance. She had not only lifted impossible weight, she had lifted expectations, shattered stereotypes, and proven her capability in a world built for the strongest warriors. The SEAL-level gear, once a symbol of impossible standards, had been conquered, and Emily, drenched, exhausted, and victorious, knew that nothing could stop her resolve. She had earned her place. The field was quiet now, the intensity of the day's trials settling into a tense calm. Emily Carter stood, uniform soaked with sweat, mud, and the remnants of fatigue, her muscles quivering but her posture proud. Around her, the other candidates moved slowly, some exhausted, some still grappling with disbelief. The instructors gathered, their clipboards filled with notes and observations. Emily felt their gaze, sharp and analytical, yet tinged with a rare acknowledgement. This was the moment she had trained for, the instant when hard work, determination, and resilience translated into recognition. One by one, the instructors approached. Commander Harris, the lead evaluator, stopped in front of Emily, scanning her carefully. His expression had softened since the beginning of the trials, skepticism replaced with respect. "Lieutenant Commander Carter," he said, voice low but commanding, "what you've demonstrated today goes beyond what we expected. Your endurance, precision, and composure under extreme conditions are exceptional." Emily nodded, catching her breath, allowing the words to sink in. She had trained for recognition, yes, but it was still profoundly validating to hear it. The other instructors stepped forward, offering brief nods, subtle gestures of approval, or comments on her technique. "Your leverage and grip adjustments were flawless," one said. "You maintained composure where others faltered," added another. Emily listened, absorbing the feedback quietly, internally cataloging the praise as evidence of her capabilities. She realized that recognition was more than mere words. It was acknowledgement from those who had once doubted her, those who had trained and lived in the very conditions she had mastered. Her peers began to approach, some hesitantly at first, others with open admiration. "I didn't think anyone could handle that final crate," one SEAL candidate admitted, voice tinged with awe. "You made it look effortless," another added, eyes wide. Emily smiled faintly, brushing mud from her uniform. She had always understood that respect in this world was earned, not given, and today she had earned it not by words but by action. The camaraderie among warriors, hard-won through shared struggle, was beginning to form around her. Emily allowed herself a moment of reflection. The journey to this point had been long and grueling: early mornings, punishing workouts, endless mental preparation, and repeated confrontations with doubt. Each trial, each obstacle, had been a stepping stone to this recognition. She thought of the instructor's initial skepticism, the whispered doubts of peers, and the nagging questions in her own mind. Every step forward had been a choice to persist despite fear, fatigue, and uncertainty. And now the cumulative weight of that perseverance was acknowledged, not just by herself, but by those she respected most. The instructors moved aside, allowing candidates to debrief among themselves. Emily's peers gathered around her, questions mingled with admiration. "How did you keep your focus through the water tanks?" one asked. "What was going through your mind during the wall lifts?" another inquired. Emily answered succinctly, sharing insights into her mental strategies and techniques for maintaining composure under extreme fatigue. Her explanations were grounded in practical experience, demonstrating that mastery wasn't just about brute strength. It was about preparation, calculation, and resilience. Commander Harris approached again, this time offering a rare smile. "Many have attempted these trials. Few succeed at your level, Lieutenant Commander. Your performance today is exemplary. Not only have you handled the physical demands, but you've demonstrated the mental fortitude that defines a true SEAL candidate. You've earned the respect of this field." Emily felt a swell of pride, tempered by humility. Recognition from those who understood the stakes was meaningful, but she also knew the journey was far from over. As the day drew to a close, Emily walked through the training grounds slowly, allowing herself to absorb the atmosphere. The mud, sweat, and exhaustion were badges of honor. She reflected on the growth she had achieved. Her body had endured more than ever before, her mind had stayed clear under pressure, and her resolve had never wavered. Each obstacle had taught her something new: balance, leverage, patience, and the power of refusing to give in. She had proven to herself that limits could be exceeded when determination was absolute. The camaraderie among her peers strengthened in this moment of shared struggle. Some approached tentatively, offering congratulations or comments on the difficulty of the course. Emily responded graciously, emphasizing teamwork and respect. She understood that recognition was not solely about individual achievement. It was about mutual acknowledgement in a world where survival depended on reliability, composure, and the ability to inspire confidence in others. Today, she had earned not just admiration, but credibility. Instructors began packing up, their clipboards full of observations, evaluations, and notes for future review. Emily lingered at the edge of the field, taking one last look at the obstacles that had tested every fiber of her being. The journey had been brutal, the expectations high, and the skepticism tangible. Yet she had endured, conquered, and gained something far greater than the completion of a trial. She had earned respect, proven her capability, and solidified her place among warriors who had once doubted her. As she left the field, the early evening sky casting long shadows across the terrain, Emily felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. She had faced physical exhaustion, mental strain, and emotional doubt, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. Recognition from instructors and peers alike affirmed what she had always known. Capability was measured not by circumstance or perception, but by action, perseverance, and the willingness to endure the impossible. Today, Emily Carter had earned not only respect but a legacy within the ranks she aspired to join. The sun was low on the horizon, casting a golden glow over the training grounds as Emily Carter walked slowly across the field. The day had been long, punishing, and transformative. Every obstacle she had faced, the grueling physical lifts, the treacherous water crossings, the punishing mud pits, the seal-level gear, had tested the limits of her body and mind. Yet standing here, exhausted but triumphant, she realized that the journey was about far more than completing trials. It was about proving that determination, resilience, and courage could defy expectations and inspire others. In the distance, new candidates were arriving, eyes wide with anticipation and nerves. Emily watched them with quiet recognition. She remembered her own first steps on these grounds, the skepticism, the doubt, and the immense pressure of proving herself. Now, after days of grueling trials and earning the respect of instructors and peers alike, she could see herself in each of them. Her own journey became a beacon, a silent example that obstacles could be overcome with preparation, perseverance, and unwavering focus. As she gathered her gear, Emily noticed some candidates sneaking glances her way, curiosity mixed with awe. She had become more than a competitor, she had become a symbol of what was possible. Whispers carried across the field. Did you see how she handled the final crate? She moved like a seasoned SEAL, not just a trainee. Emily smiled faintly, not out of vanity, but because she understood the deeper significance. Her achievement was not just personal. It was proof that barriers, whether physical, mental, or societal, could be surpassed. The instructors approached, their expressions softened with approval. Commander Harris, in particular, lingered, watching Emily with a rare combination of respect and pride. "Lieutenant Commander Carter," he said, voice steady, "what you've accomplished here will be remembered by these candidates and by those who follow. You've set a new standard for determination, skill, and perseverance. Your performance will inspire others to push past their limits." Emily nodded, absorbing the weight of the moment. Recognition from those she respected most was deeply validating. Yet she felt an even greater responsibility to honor the example she had set. Emily reflected on the challenges she had faced. The physical pain, the exhaustion, the mental strain, all had been extreme. Yet each trial had taught her something invaluable. She had learned to embrace discomfort, to find strength in moments of doubt, and to harness fear as motivation rather than allowing it to paralyze her. Every obstacle had been an opportunity to refine her body, sharpen her mind, and strengthen her spirit. And now, having conquered what many considered impossible, she understood that true achievement was measured not by the ease of the path, but by the courage to face it fully. Around her, other candidates began to approach, asking questions, seeking advice, and sharing their own struggles. Emily listened patiently, offering insights and encouragement. "Focus on your technique first," she advised one struggling candidate. "Let your mind guide your strength," she told another. Her words carried weight because they were grounded in experience, in the raw reality of having pushed past limits that few dared to challenge. Emily realized that her legacy would not only be remembered in the results she achieved, but also in the guidance and inspiration she provided to others. Even as the day ended, Emily's thoughts lingered on the significance of her journey. She had faced skepticism, bias, and doubt at every turn. She had been tested physically, mentally, and emotionally. And yet she had endured, excelled, and emerged stronger than she had ever imagined. This triumph was more than a personal victory. It was a statement about capability, perseverance, and the power of refusing to quit. She had proven that limits exist only until they are challenged, and that courage can redefine what is possible. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the field in long shadows, Emily took a final walk across the obstacles she had conquered. Each crate, rope, and wall bore silent witness to her determination. She paused at the edge of the mud pit, now a symbol of the trials she had endured, and allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. The fatigue was still present, a deep, lingering ache, but so was pride. A pride not rooted in accomplishment alone, but in the example she had set. She had lifted more than gear. She had lifted expectations, inspired peers, and demonstrated the true meaning of resilience. The instructors began to gather their notes, and Emily knew the trials were over for now. But the impact of her journey would continue. Candidates would carry the memory of her performance, striving to emulate her focus, endurance, and composure. She had set a standard not through words but through action. And for Emily, that was the most meaningful legacy of all, proving that determination, preparation, and courage could overcome even the most extreme challenges. As she finally walked away from the training grounds, the sky painted in the warm hues of sunset, Emily Carter carried with her more than exhaustion or triumph. She carried the knowledge that she had achieved something remarkable, not just for herself, but for every candidate who would follow in her footsteps. The trials had tested her body, mind, and spirit, and she had emerged victorious. She had proven that strength is measured not only by the ability to lift impossible weight, but by the resilience to endure, the courage to persevere, and the will to inspire others to do the same. Emily paused one last time, looking over the field where she had conquered the impossible. The trials had ended, but their impact on her peers, and on the legacy she had created would endure. She had become more than a candidate. She had become a symbol of perseverance, courage, and the power of the human spirit. And as she walked into the fading light, she knew that this was only the beginning of the journey she had forged for herself and for those who would follow.